Hey guys, welcome back to Luke's Garage. Today we are going to be installing a universal seat heater, heated seat universal kit. There we go, on a Chevy Silverado. It's a 2017. I chose this kit because the seat, the heat selectors, it's a 5-position switch as opposed to just the 2 that you typically see. I don't want it to be either too cold or way too damn hot. I'd rather have somewhere in the middle. The actual dials look just like the factory dials are in the truck, so I can, mount those on the gauge cluster somewhere or in the bezel for the radio, and hopefully they'll look factory, so we'll do that. But yeah, for $100 to get heated seats like factory, if you know what you're doing, it's a pretty easy install on newer vehicles. On older ones, similar, but the clips that the seats have, hog rings versus plastic, make it a little bit tougher. Still can be done. But yeah, hopefully this gives you guys a little review of this product. It's a good one. But yeah, let's get to the install. I'll walk you through the parts, and then we'll go through actually installation into the truck and how to do that. And hopefully it all turns on at the end. We'll see.
Okay, so we will look at the actual material before I go and start installing it in the truck. The reason that I chose this package is because the seat heaters actually have a selectable 5-position dial that looks very, very similar to any, factory installation switch for HVAC and that kind of stuff. So what you get, pretty typical of what you would see in any package of universal seat heaters. Obviously you get your 4, pads. So one for your butt, one for your back. Covers 2 seats. Obviously instructions. These instructions that came with this set are very good. Very easy to understand. If you were doing this for your first time, it'd be pretty hard to mess it up if you just, obviously just read, which I have a hard time doing sometimes, so I like to skip that part. But, as you can see, we'll get to the detail, which I've noticed in a lot of videos people tend to miss, is actually trimming out holes through this material to fit the details on your seat, where there's actually a clip that'll sit down in these grooves. There's a groove right there that'll hold this material so it looks factory. After you install these, a lot of people cut that off the back, so the back material of the seat flops forward and it looks sloppy, and yeah, it gets the job done. But if you care about the aesthetics of your car and you're trying to do it right, don't skip that step. So obviously your 4 pads, easy to do, easy to see. Got all your mesh. So these are your heating elements. You can actually cut through these, not all the way across, obviously, because then they're not connected, but a lot like an electric stove, where if the coils are all connected, wherever they're connected, the heat will get through and heat up the whole area. So as long as you have, some of these, and they go all the way out to the border almost, but it talks about it in the directions, not to exceed areas of cut. Again, very easy, very, very typical. Then you always have your harnesses. Very well-built harness from what I've seen. This is why I chose it right here, guys. So it's got this selectable, clickable switch, not sloppy. A lot of for $20 less, you get 2 options. You get high or low. So I spent the extra $20 and I get 5 options where I don't have to deal with it being too cold or too hot and wish there was somewhere in the middle. This gives me the option to do it. Very easy install. Like I said, this chrome bezel fits most newer vehicles, just how it looks. Depth-wise, very easy to install, so just find a place to punch out in your truck or vehicle. I'll show you how we install, or I've got an idea how to install one on this Chevy Silverado 2017 that's going to look factory. So just taking your time. All the leads are long enough. This has 3 wires that you need to connect. One's just an accessory basically remote turn on wire, 12-volt constant, and then a ground. Very easy, very basic install for wire. But again, if you don't know what you're doing, ask a friend, or at least do a little more research. It's still very simple, and I'll show you on this truck what we do, or what I do. But again, questions, please throw them at me. I can probably help you. Yeah. So, and then obviously you get a little extra padding for these, so when you do your trim cuts out, you want to come back and install, you know, these pads sandwich style over the holes, so that, you know, the exposed, you can kind of see it, all that exposed grating, they'll just be little tiny, you know, millimeter size exposure to those. You want to basically rewrap those and cover them so that they're not going to touch anything metal or just be exposed. You just want them to be covered back up and safe. So yeah, that's about it. Again, I really like this kit. It was $100 for both front seats. So the important stuff, let's get to showing you guys how to install this. It takes some time. Luckily the seats are newer, so they don't have the hog rings. They've got plastic clips, which is a lot more user-friendly to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing with this. So guys, for this truck, I want to do my actual knobs here and here. What I've done is used the top of this and the bottom of this to basically give me a center, so that when I drill my holes through this plastic, they're centered up with this knob. You can do that on most vehicles. You can always find a center point, and then I obviously measured in between here and got my center point. So hopefully that's pretty close. What I'll do is take this inside and drill this out and show you how you get a true center on it with the knobs. But what you want to do obviously at this point is take this whole thing out of this truck. There we go. And then we'll just take all these switches off and take this inside. So I'll do that right now, and I'll show you how to drill out the holes next. Okay, so we have our parts inside. So what I did, obviously, if you have a 2017 Silverado, after you take your dash kit out, this whole bezel, there's a set of torque screws, 6 of them here, you know, here and then here. Actually, there's 7. Just all around. You take those out, and then this whole screen pops out. And so what I'm looking for is right here, basically behind this dash bezel. And so what I've done to this point is I've taken measurements, you know, giving me the width between. So when I'm the width between, when I drill my hole, it'll actually line up with this hole. So I, you know, straight edged across here, and then I split the difference and I put a pencil mark right there where I'm going to drill my hole, and that should center up these switches. So again, same thing on the other side, but you always want to flip your parts over and make sure there's space, so it should come through right here just fine. It'll probably honestly come up a little bit in between both of these screw mount locations. I could get rid of this one and be just fine, and I can Dremel out the side of this one and probably be just fine as well. So what we'll go into now is how to properly drill the holes and mount the switches. So I was editing my video and I noticed that the actual part where I drill out these holes was missing on both of my videos. So what you do is find your smallest drill bit, and that'll be your pilot hole. So what you would have done, what I did in my video, is I punched that hole, and what it does is it guides this. So this is a unibit, and it goes all the way down to 3/4. You can pick these up for next to nothing at Harbor Freight. There's a set of 3 for like $8.99. And what it does is it goes down to 3/4 inch, just incremental, and follows that pilot hole so that the hole is very always centered up. And yeah, I noticed that the video after the hole picks up where how you use this knob to center these holes up completely. So I will I'll insert this one, and hopefully that explains that step. Luckily it's pretty easy to do. So the next thing we want to do is take the back end of your plug, feed it through the hole you just made, because it's still not, you know, this barrel isn't going to fit, and line your switch up like so on your plastic, and then you can trace the actual switch And what that'll do is make a perfectly sized hole to fit this switch, always in pencil so you can erase it. And so if we take that out, you can see, I'll try and get that, the hole is fairly perfect, but easy enough. I can take a Dremel and then Dremel the rest of this out. So I will, I'll set up my Dremel and I'll get that cut out really quick. Okay, so once you have your hole cut out, you want to, I'll try to turn this. All of these barrels have a little catch. You can kind of see it right there that keeps them from spinning. So what you need to do is set your switch up to an orientation that you like. You know, you want to point it up, and then wherever you need to cut your notch, you want to take your pencil and mark where that notch needs to be, so that when you take it out, you can remember that you need to cut your notch right there. So this fits fine. I could push it through and lock it, but obviously I still have to cut that out. So once I get that cut out, I can push that through and lock it in place, and we will be done with our switch mounting in our dash.
So the very first thing you want to do on this 2017 Chevy Silverado is remove all of these 6 bolts. They are 14 millimeter, so there's 2 in the back on each side, and then there'll be 1 up front. So I'll go ahead and remove those, and then when I get the seat loosened up, I'll show you the bottom of it. And how we get to the bottom of it, we also need to remove the seat belt. It's attached right there, so we'll go into that. But yeah, let's get to removing this seat. Okay, so once you have the bolts out, you want to remove we're on the driver's side, so you want to remove the retainer for the side trim. So that guy comes off, we'll go around to the front door. Okay, so coming up front, we want to take this trim. There's a plug that fits in this way, and then there's also a tab that slides in and locks in. So I'll show you. That just pops forward and off. So there's our clip, and then there's our tab. That tab fits right in that slot. And what this does is gives us access to the brains of the seat. So most likely it's all your airbag and your smart side of your seat. So for removing the sensor, you want to take this red tab, push it this way, and then also pull up on this gray handle. There we go, and clicks, and then it'll click over all the way to that. Now it's ready to remove. Okay, so your seat is not smart anymore. So what I'll do is flip the seat upside down so you can see the bottom of it, because I still have a few more plugs to remove, but that's the basic disassembly to get this guy out of here. So just thread your wires, because the way this frame is, this plug will have to go through here under your seats. I mean, pretty bonehead stuff. Just be gentle with this stuff and take your time and make sense of taking it out. But yeah, let me flip the seat over and I'll show you guys how this all comes out. The next thing we need to do is remove the levers on the seats. So what we're looking at here is the reclining action of this seat. I already took this one off just to show you. So this clip right here, this black guy sitting in there, my blue band is pointing at, fits right there. So what you need to do is take something flat and basically, I'll give you the demo here, is take something flat and push it down and it'll just pop out. So you kind of push in the seat plastic a little to get access, and what you would do is take this, slide it in between the lever, and then push that pin out, and that'll pop out, and that does this on both of these levers. And what this will do is give us access to the seat belt, which obviously we need to take out to get to this. So let me take these off, and then I can move this plastic and show you how we take the seat belt out. Okay, so now we have another torque screw to remove. It is a T20, so if, you know, we're looking at the seats laying down, it's on the left side, right around this corner, right there. You can see it right there, that guy, and then that'll release all that plastic. That's the final little torque screw that you'll need to take out. Okay, finally you want to undo the seat back clips from underneath the seat, and what it'll do is give you access to a T25 torque screw. So here it is right here, I already took it out. And so then this plastic should be removable. We can get to that seat belt cover now to take that out. And what you're going to need is a T50 torque. So get one of these guys, big dog. And so I'll break the seal on the bolt and then show you. Just it's pretty easy to take out. Okay, so the trim would have been sitting down here alongside the seat. Just thread it up through the seat belt. Exposes your T50, which I've already got broken, so I can take that out. You need to take this little clip out, and then this whole unit will stay behind, and the seat will finally be free, and you can then take the seat apart and work on putting your heated seat pads inside the seats. Okay, so we want to remove our sill plate from the door, so you just grab that, pull up, comes right out. And now we have access to underneath of our carpet. So what I'm going to do is run these leads go up to the seat, and what I want to do is run this whole wire underneath this carpet up here and up into the dash where our switches are mounted. This will connect to the wire harness, which is right back here, which I'll also put in the dash once I get to that point. But for now, you can just grab your carpet, lift it up, and just however you want to thread your wires up there. Just make sure you got enough lead coming up to your seat to plug into your seat. Okay, so our leads, I usually leave about 1 foot-ish, but what I did with this truck is I ran them following this duct, just so you know, if people are putting their feet on it, you're not going to crush your wires. I followed the duct all the way across, right to the base of this carpet. It goes up here, and then so right now we're coming up right behind where we need to, right behind the stereo, so I can just thread this guy right up into the stereo and connect that when it comes time. But what I'll do now is go inside and start doing the installation on the seat. Okay, so the passenger side is exactly the same, just obviously opposite, but I just want to show you guys anyways. So we have our lead coming up to our seat. Wire runs across the tunnel all the way up in this corner, and then it comes up right here. So we are stubbed up, ready to go into our dash. So let's start, I'll go get the other seat put together, and then we'll start doing the wiring in the dash. Okay, so once you get the seat out of the truck, like I was showing you, you just pull these clips off the bottom of the seat where they attach. They just pop right out. And then what you need to do is roll the fabric back on both the backrest and the butt rest, and you'll start seeing these little plastic bars. And these are put in with these little yellow clips. You just push the clip back, and they just pop right out. And you do that all the way back as far as your pad will lay. So basically you'll take this whole thing off, and to reinstall it, you just push these bars right back in those yellow clips, so they're a lot easier than the old-fashioned hog rings. So anyways, I'll take the seat cover off, and then I'll show you guys how to install the actual pad. Okay, so the seat pad is stuck down. For a 2017 Chevy Silverado, you need to cut 2 holes. So these mount seat brackets can fit through those holes and still stick down the fabric, because if you just cut those off, you see a lot of people cut those off. Don't do that. These pads are designed to be cut, and the reason, if you do that, when you mount this down, this seat's going to end up looking just like this. It's not going to look factory, it's going to look sloppy, it's just going to look bad. So obviously a lot of these tie-down bars are longer than the seat cover. So what you do to accommodate that is you take the actual fabric and you make a cut so that it can fit in between the seat cover, just like so, and then it can stick down into its mount, these little orange mounts. So yeah, so that's how you cut those to fit the actual seat heaters. Okay, so in order to mount these plastic seat fabric hold down bars properly through these heated seat pads, sometimes you'll need to make modifications to make them fit. As I was saying before, you don't want to cut these all the way off because they do hold the seat fabric down inside the seat to these little orange tabs, so they just click right in there and keep the fabric held down. But as you can see, this goes way past the actual heating element fabric, so we need to make an adjustment. So what I do is hold it down to the fabric, make a mark with my Sharpie where I need to have my cuts. So I do that, and then take my scissors and come in just about, this one's going to be about 1.5 inches. And what that does is allows that fabric to sit right on top of the heating element while allowing the fabric mount bar to be down below it. So I can still put this in that tab, and what it'll do is maintain that factory look after the install is complete. So after you get your cuts made and the seat fabric fits around the heating pad, you just take that bar, one finger on each side, and just push it down until you hear that click, and that locks it right in place. Yep. So after you get your cuts made and the seat fabric fits around the heating pad, you just take that bar, one finger on each side, and just push it down until you hear that click, and that locks it right in place. Okay, so now that all the bars are clicked in place, all the seat fabric is tight, so the next thing you need to do is take all of your fabric and re-stretch it over the seat pad, pulling all the slack out of the top. And you basically just unroll it the same way you took it off. Making sure you get every wrinkle out of this, because any wrinkle you leave in will show in the fabric. So if you end up with these bumps, what that is the fabric bar, either the fabric wasn't cut enough and it's hanging up on the heating element pad, or you can pull the fabric away from it and it'll flatten that out, which it looks like it's actually the fabric on that bar isn't cut enough. So what I'll have to do is peel that back up and get in there and cut that. Okay, so you can see it right here, how this fabric is wrinkled. So that's why we were getting the bump on top, because what I need to do is actually loosen this fabric past this heating pad element, because it's catching, and what it's doing is pulling the fabric down, and that's why you're getting these bumps right here and here. So in order to fix that, let's take those out, and we will just take a little bit more fabric, and what that'll do is take that tension completely out of the corner of those seats, and they should lay flat now. In order to take the seat backrest off of the seat, it has two zippers that are located down here in the base of the seat. So you just run those two up on each side. This guy will fold up, and then there are two more plastic clips right here, and that takes off the back of the seat. And then, so turning this around, you can just start peeling up the wing portions of the seat and the fabric, and it will expose more of these bars again. So what you want to do is just get in there, start popping those up. like so. Okay, and then on this seat you want to be careful because this side does have an airbag in it, so I try to leave as much material covering so you can see it. It is attached to the seat, so I try and not mess with any of that material if possible. So keep that rolled down. In these seats you don't have to unroll that section. You can just keep working up the seat with all of these bars. And that's all there is to it. And then what we'll do is I'll show you how to measure the pads to sit on these seats, so you can cut a hole to fit the fabric bars down into these holes. So for the heating pad installation, when you need to cut a hole in the actual heating pad, like we will need to for here, so we can mount our seat material bar through it. What you do is you pre-fit the material down on the seat, how it's going to sit. So just like that. And you take a Sharpie and you find that valley that's in there and you just trace it like that. So now what we can do is take that out, fold it in half, and just with a normal pair of scissors, just make a cut. And then cut out a window. And I make it about 1/2 inch wide to 1 inch, depending on the seat. We'll go about 1 inch on this one. Okay, and we want to test fit it again to make sure that our window's cut right, and that's looks like a good fit. And so now what that does is, again, as we did on the butt part of the seat, it allows this bar to go through and connect to the factory connections on the seat for the material, while also allowing heat to transfer up each side of this element into this back portion of this pad. Okay, so you need to make a hole for the thermostat in the foam, and you can just use your fingers. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just pull that foam out. So what it does is this thermostat is hard, so when this pad's flopped over and your back's against it, it's actually resting in this hole, so you don't feel this thermostat against your back. And then the next thing you do after you've got the sticky ready to go, take your wiring, push it through the back of the seat, and you just roll this down nicely against the seat backrest, and that's pretty much the install for the pad. So that's ready to go. Is reinstall the seat back cover, and then we'll go put this out in the truck and install all of our wiring. Okay guys, so we are reinstalling the seat. Wire connectors is the obviously first thing you want to do. So both of the pads come down to our single wire system to the harness. So again, going all the way back up here, I still don't have the wires up here run yet, but I will. So what we want to do is basically, obviously, just reinstall the seat how you took it apart, making sure to put all your clips and everything back together, because they do serve a purpose, and most of the times it's an airbag or an occupancy sensor, which are very important. So anyways, I won't take you through that because you took it apart. So what I'll do is reinstall this seat, and then I'll get on to the other side and do kind of a in-depth installation on that seat as well. Okay, so we are to the wiring portion of the heated seat installation. So we have our harnesses right here. Dash is tore out, and what we want to do is go right down that side and meet the wires that are running to our seats. These wire harnesses will fit down here in this pocket somewhere, And then we want to run all the way across, past our steering wheel, over to our fuses, which are tied into here. So I'll run these wire harnesses and show you what those ended up looking like in this truck. And then we'll tie into the fuse block and see if this thing turns on. Okay, so the wire harnesses have been run. What I did was, here's our two leads. I always make sure this is obviously where I'm sitting. It's on my right side. Goes down into my seat, and we'll hook up to this dial so that when I turn that dial on, I get the passenger side seat, and then I turn that dial and it becomes the driver's side seat. So easy to switch if you get them mixed up, but just a side note, so in case you get to the end, you put it all back together and the wrong side turns on, and that way you won't have to take it all apart again. So what I did, both of the modules, here's one sitting there, there's one sitting there. Wires coming down here, I'll tuck this up and hide it, obviously. And then they both, all the wiring runs down here and it's hanging out right here for now. So what I'm going to do now is take it over and put it in the fuse box. So I'll take the fuse box, open that up, describe what I'm seeing, and hook it up, and we'll see if everything turns on. So the first thing we want to do is ground the system when it comes to the wiring. So what I do is, with my two ground wires, which are the black, tied into this bolt, it's going into the frame. I've tested with my voltmeter, it's a great ground. Then we want to look for a 12-volt constant and an ignition accessory wire. If you're doing, again, 2017 Silverado, it's awesome because there's all sorts of spares, but the greatest part is we've got a left heated seat and a right heated seat, so we can tie directly into those fuses, and those are going to be our 12-volt constant. And then what else we want to tie into is our ignition, so it's just a 15 amp HVAC ignition. And so that on this kit is going to be our yellow and red, and then our 12-volt constant is obviously these big red ones. So what I'll do is tie those into those fuses, and then we'll turn it on and see if it turns on. Okay, so the moment of truth. Let's turn the key. Ooh, and they turn on. We'll see if they heat up. So I did a little bit of farmer engineering on the wiring until I get a splitter or three for these. But we just did a quick fuse patch. You know, it does what I need it to for now. But and for a lot of people that works just fine. But they also make fuses that will split. I hurt my finger. They'll split those out of a fuse block and make a secondary fuse, which you can tie into. It makes it a lot cleaner. So these switches are awesome. 6 positions, no low high. I mean, it's awesome. Happy with the install. There you go, guys. I hope that this was very informative for you. Please feel free to ask me questions. The wiring is super easy on these trucks just because they have so many spare spots, so many open spots that you don't have to just, patch into something that you hope works by the time you turn it on. As I'm sitting here, the seat's finally getting hot, so they heat up quick. Looks nice. Yeah, there you go, guys. Good luck in your installs. I hope it goes smooth. Again, feel free to hit me up with questions if you get stuck.